Adams, and this draft is just so deep with players who fit the bill of exactly what they're looking for. On your screen right now, Kadarius Toney from the University of Florida, an absolute playmaker who just tore it up down at the Senior Bowl. You've got Amari Rodgers from Clemson, who is another one of those guys who would fit the bill as well. And then Dwayne Eskridge from Western Michigan. They just have so many guys that are out there that are available for them that I think they'll get one of them.
Next up will be Ben Roethlisberger. Should he keep playing in 2021?
Yeah, I don't think without a doubt he should keep playing. Look, when we talked to him just this past year for Monday Night Football, Ben sounded like somebody who really thought that he could play many more years in the NFL. He didn't sound like someone who was burnt out, someone who really was seeing the end of his career coming. I think obviously they have to figure out what the financial situation is going to be for him in Pittsburgh and what that's going to look like. But I think you're going to see Big Ben for a couple more years in the NFL.
And then one more. If you were in the Browns front office, would you sign Baker Mayfield to a long-term deal now?
There's no doubt about that at all. Look, he has found his niche right now with Kevin Stefanski in this play-action-oriented type of offense that really runs through the running game, and off of the play-action passing game comes the kind of production that you're looking for out of Baker Mayfield. He's not someone who's just going to be able to transcend his surroundings and really make everyone else better in the sense of, a true, generational type of franchise quarterback. But this is a perfect fit for him in Cleveland. And I think they understand that. I think they like where they're heading. There's no way I'd let him get out of the door. They have a good thing going in Cleveland. They found someone who can win them football games and play at a high level when need be. I wouldn't chance that and try starting over at all. I wouldn't mess with this in any way, shape, or form. We see what's happening to other teams that don't really know what their next best alternative is when they go ahead and they let their starting quarterback out the door. I don't think Cleveland will make the same mistake.
Understood. But just to be clear, we're talking about signing an extension. He just finished his third year. They can pick up the fifth-year option, which means just by doing that, they have him guaranteed for 2 more years. So, but we're talking about what they did in L.A. with the Rams and Jared Goff, ripped up his deal, did an extension. What they did in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz, ripped up his deal, did an extension. We saw how those turned out as well. No concern with that, Lewis?
Now, for me, as long as it makes sense for the club and they can minimize their risk and protect themselves on the downside and not go overboard now and not sign them to a market-setting contract, yeah, I would be proactive in this situation. I think it kind of shows good faith on the part of the team. I think Baker has adjusted to what have been some very challenging circumstances throughout his career, and he has taken a lot of heat for some of the things that he has done that really, quite honestly, aren't just necessarily all on him. So I think this is one of those where as long as the relationship is healthy, I would be proactive in this situation because, again, I think he has settled in nicely to what Kevin Stefanski wants to do offensively.
Jeff Darlington, what are we hearing out of there? Is that the expectation? I know it's not this week, but should we be expecting that?
It is the expectation, but that's generally what we hear from any team. We heard it from the Dallas Cowboys for several years, but it does bring up an interesting point around the NFL. We want to criticize the Rams and the Eagles for paying Wentz and Goff and ultimately having to unload them, but then we want to also criticize the Cowboys for not doing the same with Dak. It's a very interesting situation teams now face with this 4th and 5th year of a rookie deal. So it's a tough spot for the Browns to be in. But to Lewis's point, if you can find a nice deal that both sides agree on, absolutely, you lock them up.
Look, I mean, maybe the point that you're making here is the key is to get it right. The key is you can get it wrong either way. The key is to get it right. And it's very easy for me sitting here to say, Mike Tannenbaum, if you were sitting there making this decision, what would you do?
I would not extend him. He's a guy that is under contract this year. The option should be about $22 million next year, and the year after you could franchise him. So you control him for the next 3 years. When you look at his classmates like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, those are much harder players to replace. Kevin Stefanski has done a great job. I would proceed with caution, Greeny. And as you mentioned, Goff and Wentz are cautionary tales. I would be patient if I was Cleveland and see this go for at least another year.
All right, let's see where they wind up going with all of that. Meanwhile, this week is all about the franchise tag, so we will play a game called To Tag or Not To Tag. That is the question. Mike T, should the Lions tag Kenny Golladay?
Absolutely. I would tag him and extend him. He is a core young player who's ascending. He should be there with Dan Campbell and hopefully Jared Goff for a number of years, but you can't let somebody like him leave the building.
Yeah, he's someone who would be highly sought after if he became a free agent. Lewis, how about the Bucs and their young receiver Chris Godwin? To tag or not to tag?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this one. I think I would probably err on the side of caution and not tag him. I would want to extend him and get him back in the fold, but I think they have other players on this roster right now, namely in fifth-round pick from 2020, Tyler Johnson, that could fill that role. And given the fact that they have other, fish to fry, so to speak, as far as their free agent signings that they need to get signed, I think I would really go ahead and put all my eggs in the Shaq Barrett basket right now.
And then let me go, Mike T, to the Packers. Should they franchise tag Aaron Jones?
They should not. This is all about resource allocation. He's a great player. You got to go with A.J. Dillon, the second-year player from Boston College, and then maybe bring Jamal Williams back at a lower price. Even though Jones is a great player, it's too expensive for the running back position, and you got a really good player behind him.
Yeah, so we are back to that again. Let me come out and talk about it for a minute here, because we know how valuable he is, and we know that is a team thinking Super Bowl thoughts. But, Lewis, it is back to the whole should you pay a running back conversation, even in a one-year kind of window, as Mike is talking about. That's where we are in the NFL right now. Where do you stand on it?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to try and buck that trend and kind of like zig when everyone else is zagging, when it just makes sense, considering that, your next best alternative at running back always seems to be right around the corner. And that's not to be disrespectful or to disparage Aaron Jones in any way, because having get to seeing him play live a couple different times, this kid is special. He is special, but they have other players in the fold. And I can just tell you this, Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon are two guys that I know Matt LaFleur likes a lot. I think they are people that can really do a lot of the things that they want to do within the context of that offense as far as its run-pass ratio. And in that regard, I think Aaron Jones is going to be one of those guys who's going to wind up being more valuable to someone else than to the Green Bay Packers from a contract perspective, or at least that's the way it seems to be heading. So, I mean, look, that's just the nature of the position at running back. And again, I have nothing but respect for Aaron Jones, but I think that's just the way it's going to be for the foreseeable future as far as valuing running backs is concerned.
He's a great player, but Jeff, should we expect him to be on a different team next year?
I think the franchise tag is so interesting with running backs. You do get 1 year out of a guy who's going to get beaten up pretty good. But we've seen the cautionary tales again. Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott. We can go to Le'Veon Bell. He ultimately held out, and that's a cautionary tale on that side of things. So I do anticipate seeing Aaron Jones on the Packers, but to Mike and Lewis's point, there's a lot of interesting scenarios for the Packers to go down here.
The life of the running back is a complicated one in the National Football